Hello, welcome back to the channel. If you participated in the fall recruiting season for consulting, it is about time to reap the rewards. As you know, we're officially entering into the offer seasons where you're starting to get calls from different companies on different offers. And I think, it is really a sweet problem to have if you do have multiple offers and you're trying to decide which one to go with, which is why also I decided to invite Rayful back, because he's one of the very few people I know who received offer from MBB, Bain, McKinsey, and BCG. Is there a fourth one?
Strategy and as well.
So I thought he could really share the experience, shed some light into, why he decided to go with McKinsey in the end, and what are the criteria or things that you can look at if you are in a similar position. All right, do you want to talk about your experience back then with the offer stage? What was that like? Was it exciting?
Yeah, I mean, it was very exciting. I really worked hard during my case prep, and I was in France at the time finishing my MBA and was applying for consulting in Dubai, so had even flown to Dubai.
Oh wow.
To do like lightning rounds of interviews. It was exhausting.
Actually, how many companies do you apply for? Do you remember?
I mean, many.
Were
I
they
think
all
I applied
Dubai?
to every consulting company.
Okay.
At the time, I think pretty much everybody at INSEAD did. INSEAD is the consulting MBA after all. So lots of interviews. I mean, other than MBB, I think I also interviewed for like AT Kearney and Strategy and others. So I was like really cased out after like 2 months of just, I don't know, dozens and dozens of interviews. So yeah, when you start getting kind of the calls that like, hey, like you're going to final round, like, hey, you're going to be hearing from us. It feels really good. Right.
That must be exciting. I remember I screamed so hard the night I got the call from McKinsey. Almost felt like I couldn't believe it.
I'm pretty sure. So my McKinsey interviews were all in a single day. That's how they did
all
it at
them.
INSEAD. Yeah. So
Wow.
First round was basically in the morning. Like I did 2 interviews
That's
in
2
first
hours.
round. Yeah,
of
one
interview.
one hour,
1 hour
each.
for each. Yeah. I remember.
And they were intense. They were definitely some of the more intense interviews I had done for consulting. I remember I had gone to like a cafe, to like the INSEAD cafe, to get a coffee and just chill a little bit. And then I get a call saying, hey, can you come back for your final round in 15 minutes? So
Oh, that's very intense.
and then I went on to do another 2 hours of interviews for my final round. So when I got the call that like they were going to extend me an offer, and I think McKinsey was probably...
They call you the night of or like the next day. It's very quick.
I think it was, one of the first firms that I actually heard back from, just simply because they did everything in one day. And I think after 4 hours of case interviews, like I was actually
Dead.
about to fall asleep. I was like ready to take a nap when the partner called me and said that that I'm going to be hearing back from them. So I was pretty tired. Didn't scream. I
No
just
screaming?
had a nap at that point.
I went out and bought a cake. But anyways.
Nice.
So what happened after you received the 3 offers?
Yeah, so I mean, once you receive offers, really the next phase, the tables turn, right?
Right.
They've kind of made it
The power has
clear.
turned.
Yeah, I mean, not so much power, it's just like the dynamics change, right?
Yeah, because you're now selecting them versus them selecting you.
Right, and it's a nice position to be in, but it's also the best opportunity to actually now figure out, like, okay, they want me, so...
Which one do you want?
Exactly, and how do you make that decision? And I think that becomes like a good opportunity. And
Yeah.
yes, they're gonna try and schmooze
Wine
you,
and dine.
you, right?
Yeah.
I think that's pretty standard. Like most firms, even many companies, right? In that kind of an MBA environment, once you get an offer, they're gonna take you to dinner.
Have a little celebration.
Celebrate, but then it's also a fantastic opportunity for you just to ask, kind of really direct questions and figure out which might be, the right place for you. So
That's true. I actually wonder what was your criteria or thought process of going through that experience.
yeah, I mean, I think the right way to think about it is, I mean, obviously, one, there's going to be compensation is definitely not equal between consulting firms, even between MBB firms.
Oh, really?
It's
Okay.
very different.
Is McKinsey the highest?
No, it's the lowest.
It's the lowest. No.
McKinsey's always the
Oh
lowest.
my god. Who's the highest?
Honestly, then it doesn't even make a difference. But And things change, right? Things
Yeah.
vary a lot by geography. I think they're very much in tune with like market dynamics and how much they need to pay in order to attract top talent. At the end of the day, we're not talking like major differences, but you will
Yeah.
definitely see a range, and then that's quite normal, right?
That's true. I remember when I was looking at the offer between Deloitte and McKinsey. McKinsey, first of all, had way better cash and bonus offer structure. They also had way better health insurance. As a matter of fact, like my health insurance back in the day, I had to pay zero copay, and like the coverage was amazing. So that was, sort of, I thought what stood out for me as well. Okay, so
Yeah.
Comp is one, what else?
So comp is one, and by the way, like for if you are joining consulting out of school, whether it's out of an MBA or out of undergrad,
they don't negotiate.
there's no room for negotiation. Everything is pretty much
Zero.
set. So Whippy, like you've got multiple offers. It does not mean that you're going to be able to play firms against each other. It
Nope,
just
they don't do
they
that.
they know like what others are paying, and they're pretty set in what they're going to offer you.
I honestly think it's a lot easier because, like, when you know you're not missing out and everybody
Yeah.
starts out at the same level, it's just so much easier. Okay, so what else besides comp?
So other than comp, I think the other things to think about are people and opportunity. When we talk about people, there are differences for sure between different firms. And to me, like over the span of my career, this has been like the number one thing that I've learned to prioritize is people, because worked in many different industries, in many different environments, in many different countries, and kind of like the common theme between all my top experiences professionally have been when I was just working with really amazing people.
All right, so I think the people piece makes sense. But with consulting, you are essentially going on projects with people that you probably would not meet during the interview round. So was it like culture? You mean like the general sense of the firm culture?
Yeah, like again, you're not going to be able to talk to everyone in the whole firm. And again, things vary a lot by office, right?
That's
so,
true.
I was applying to Dubai, so I had to figure out, okay, not only what is the culture, the type of people at each firm globally, but also specifically in Dubai, because that was obviously going to have like the most impact on me, right?
Yeah, that's true. So I'm curious. So I think we previously talked about firm culture different, but I think like it's also super localized to the office. I remember when I was going through the process, I got the final round with Bain. I went to Bain and I also did McKinsey. To me, Bain felt a little bit bro-y. Wasn't just like my vibe, and then McKinsey just felt a lot more friendly. I've actually met people who I can click with. What was your experience between Bain BCG and McKinsey?
Again, like very, very different. I feel like there was a very similar vibe in all three offices, and I got to talk to a lot of cool people. What was different was, specifically at the time in Dubai, I felt McKinsey was the most diverse. And so there were a lot of people from many different nationalities. And kind of the vibe that I was getting from like the McKinsey office there was very open-minded, very international, very global, right? And I didn't get like that same sense from the other firms.
Got it. Anything else that you looked at?
Yeah, so the last thing I said was opportunity. For me, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in the Middle East long term, right? So I was kind of considering two things, right? One is, what would my potential exit from any one of those firms look like? And then how easy was it also within each of those firms to move around? What did mobility look like? And so essentially I was trying to find, which position would kind of like set me up for keep the most doors open afterwards.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't think you can go wrong. Like if you're deciding between like Big Four and MBB, I'd say, typically MBB is gonna probably help you land better exit opportunities in general, right? Like there's no clear rule behind any of this. I think between the three MBB firms, like you can't really go too wrong. But what kind of tipped the scale a little bit towards McKinsey for me was that of the three, again, kind of going back to like that global nature, it seemed that like the McKinsey staffing model leaned a lot more into very global staffing. It didn't seem that there were like a lot of barriers to move around. And you see this all the time when you kind of join a new office. There are actually typically more people that are joining the office transferring from another office than there are new joiners, right? So
yeah, that's true.
people move around. McKinsey is known to actually promote global mobility. Because they've realized that, you know, actually having people go and work in different parts of the world and gain different perspectives will often be quite beneficial to their career. And every firm's going to be structured slightly differently, but from everyone I talked to and from what I could see at the time, it seemed that McKinsey definitely had the most opportunities for global mobility, as well as like the least barriers for doing so. And so that all kind of, again, tipped the scales for me towards McKinsey. Again, take this with a grain of salt. Like, I think for me, the kind of framework holds true when you're making a decision. You know, at a high level, it's comp, it's people, and it's opportunity. But those three things are going to look very different for each individual person, right? And what's important to them. It's also going to look very different based on the offers that you have in hand and also the geographies that you're looking to go to, right? So you have to, at the end of the day, do what makes sense for you.
Did the ranking of the consulting company ever come into play? Because, you know, Volt publish, you know, the consulting company ranking every year, and it's...
I don't know, like, I mean, yeah, but those, like, other rankings, like, I think they're very, like, US-centric. And again, like, I was not hiring in the US, I was looking more globally. And in every geography, there's going to be a different ranking. And in some cases, it's not very clear what that ranking is, right? So again, I made my decision based on the information I had, but I wouldn't look too hard at those rankings. And by the way, those rankings change all the time. So
that's true.
Who's to say, like, you know, if you join what this organization says is number one this year, like, it's probably not going to be number one next year, right? They have to change it up. So
how much of that decision is made by, you know, the criteria of the people, the comp, the opportunity versus, oh, my heart kind of tells me that I wanted to?
Well, no, where your intuition comes into is that, like, even between that framework that I used, right?
That was pretty subjective too.
How do you weight those? Because again, like, in my case, I ended up picking the offer with the lowest comp. So clearly comp wasn't as important to me because I felt like if I put more weight on those other two, it was gonna kind of drive more value long term, right? So yeah, there's always a bit of intuition at play. I think you just have to kind of, you know, you're not going to make a wrong choice. You're going to naturally lean towards one and just kind of listen to your intuition as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, I think that's it for today.
That's right.
If you received any offer.
If you received an offer.
Congratulations. That was pretty much my goal at the time.
Yeah.
I just needed, honestly, you just need one job. And like, sort of, that's it, the one opportunity to start with. And I always thought, you know, the first opportunity right out of school is the hardest to get because you had no track record, no experience. So if you have any offer, congratulations, super well deserved. You know, I'm pretty sure you have worked super hard on this. So really, you know, take the time to relax and enjoy it because there are going to be plenty of, you know, hard work that is going to come up in the future. So take your time and relax and celebrate. All right, this is it for today. Thanks so much. I'm doing a Q&A very soon. So if you have any questions for me or Rayful, please feel free to leave it in the comments. Until next time, bye!
Bye!